From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
After a strenuous weekend following Hurricane Helene, communities are still recovering. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Natasha Holt.
And I'm Alex Land. Thank you for joining us. Nonprofit organizations, county, state, and even federal leaders are answering the call to assist those feeling the direct effects of Hurricane Helene. Mercy Chefs are offering hot meals in Newberry for those affected by Helene. Meals are being distributed from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., then again from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And Levy County is also offering hot meals in Cedar Key at First Baptist Church until further notice.
School's back on tomorrow for some North Central Florida students. Dixie and Columbia County school districts have announced students can return tomorrow, despite some still not having power at home. Columbia County schools are allowing an excused absence tomorrow without a note. Transportation will run in all areas where the roads are accessible.
Hurricane Helene and its 15 feet of storm surge wiped out most of Cedar Key. WUFT's Charlize Ramos says neighbor after neighbor promises to rebuild.
We're gonna get started. We're not gonna wait a month or two. We're gonna try to move right in.
You'll hear the same vow street after street.
Despite the devastation, the resilient community of Cedar Key continues rebuilding and supporting each other storm after storm.
Heavy rains today delayed cleanup and power restoration from Hurricane Helene, and more rain is on the way. Let's get right out to UF meteorologist William Maxim live in the weather studio. William, we'll likely see rain for much of the week. The National Hurricane Center has begun issuing watches and warnings for north central Florida ahead of Hurricane Milton's landfall later this week. Traffic on I-75 has been packed and slow moving for much of the day due to the mandatory evacuations underway in the Tampa area. State emergency management leaders say this is likely the largest amount of evacuations to happen since 2017. And all this comes as local leaders are working to quickly transition from Hurricane Helene recovery to Hurricane Milton preparations. The major hurricane is barreling towards the Gulf Coast of Florida, and meteorologists say it will likely make landfall on Wednesday. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Natasha Holt.
And I'm Alex Land. Hurricane Milton was upgraded to a Category 5 storm and will make landfall less than 2 weeks after another major hurricane, Helene. Let's get into the very latest. In the last hour, an evacuation order was put in place for mobile homes and RVs in Marion County. Alachua County Public Schools just announced school closures for Wednesday and Thursday. The Florida Highway Patrol and Department of Transportation have activated shoulder travel in the northbound lanes of I-75 to deal with the influx of traffic heading north. We have live team coverage of how North Central Florida is preparing. We begin with UF meteorologist William Maxim live in the weather studio with the latest advisory out on Hurricane Milton.
Yeah, Milton is a monster. Stepping aside, you can clearly see where the center of this circulation is, just a pinhole eye here and little dots around there.
As Hurricane Milton strengthens in the Gulf, Alachua County prepares for a Wednesday landfall. WUFT's Bailey Cornick went to a collection center in Alachua County where you can bring debris before Milton hits.
As residents are still cleaning up after Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton looms on the horizon. Alachua County is offering residents the opportunity to drop off yard trash at one of their collection sites like the one here ahead of Hurricane Milton making landfall.
Mandatory evacuations around Florida are underway, and residents in Alachua and nearby counties have been declared for individual assistance by FEMA. Crews continue to clean up after Hurricane Helene in preparation for Hurricane Milton, but FEMA official Keith Turry says the organization is prepared with enough resources to combat the storm's aftermath. FEMA urges everyone, especially those on the surge zone, to prepare now for the worst.
Millions without power, deadly tornadoes, and homes torn apart. That is just some of the aftermath left behind by Hurricane Milton.
The storm has now moved off the east coast of Florida after making landfall on the Gulf Coast last night. Milton is still a powerful system that is now in the Atlantic.
And the daylight hours are providing a more clearer picture of just how destructive this storm was. This is a live look at Tampa Bay, one of the harder hit areas overnight. City leaders there are warning people to stay inside as it is not yet safe to travel. It's been a long night for millions of Floridians, and the recovery process will take even longer. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming for a special morning edition of WUFT News. I'm Nicole Beltran.
And I'm Jada Ross. Our team here at WUFT News has been working round the clock to bring you updates on Milton, a historic storm that brought high storm surges, tornadoes, heavy rainfall, and powerful wind. Let's get to the very latest. More than 3 million customers are without power across the state, the most reported in the Tampa to Sarasota areas. In Marion County, leaders are telling neighbors to stay off the roads until noon today so that first responders and utility crews can work quickly. And in less than 30 minutes, Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to give an update on Milton's impacts to Florida and the state's path to recovery. We plan to bring that to press conference to you live right here.
Hurricane Milton made its way through Florida overnight, bringing powerful wind gusts and other severe weather. UF forecaster Matthew Clark joins us now with the weather. Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Millions are without power throughout the state of Florida as residents begin the road to recovery after Hurricane Milton.
Power outage reports have been pouring in since Milton made its way towards Florida, and those reports keep coming from as far north as Columbia County to Collier County in the south. Here you can see the millions of power outage reports across the state as customers across more than 20 providers are reporting thousands of outages.
As of earlier this morning, over 70,000 customers are out of power in Marion County, with Seco Energy and Duke Energy experiencing the largest outages. In Alachua County, around 5,000 power outages have been reported, with Clay Electric Co-op customers leading the charge. Seco Energy says they have a staging area in Sumterville, Florida, where crews are ready to provide aid. It's time to take a look at some of the damage closer to where the storm made landfall down south. WUFT's Juan Carlos Chowie is live in the studio with an update on the hurricane damage in Tampa. Thank you, JC. No one was hurt after a crane came crashing down into a building in St. Petersburg as Hurricane Milton moved through Florida overnight. The crane collapsed into a neighboring building on Central Avenue, and more buildings faced damages during Milton. Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays, suffered roof damage from the storm's strong winds. The St. Petersburg ballpark had plans to host 10,000 first responders and local emergency crews, but ultimately it was not used as a shelter during the storm. St. Pete also responded to a water main break, causing a city-wide shutoff of drinkable water services Thursday at midnight. The city is issuing a boil water notice for all drinking water until further notice. The city supplies drinking water to Hillsborough County, Pasco County, Pinellas County, Newport Richey, and Tampa.
Hurricane Milton's heavy rains put significant pressure on the wastewater system in Marion County. Conditions are expected to worsen throughout the night. Your help is needed. You're asked to conserve for the next 48 hours to prevent sewer overflows and protect the wastewater system. You're encouraged to avoid laundry, limit showers, and flush toilets only when necessary until 5 o'clock Friday evening. Officials say every drop you save helps keep the waterways system healthy during this critical time. Even before fully coming ashore, Milton triggered more than 24 tornadoes, with reports of multiple deaths in St. Lucie County. WUFT's Alexis Vivanco continues our team coverage live in the studio with the area's recovery efforts that are already underway. Florida Fish and Wildlife is jumping into action to help those affected by Hurricane Milton. FWC says its officers are among the first responders to enter an area after a major hurricane. Teams have been staging high water vehicles, airboats, and other equipment to jump into action to address damages and flooding in the wake of the major storm. Coming up, ongoing search and rescue efforts, how the federal government is responding to Hurricane Milton.
And Orlando officials make efforts to get the city back on track. More updates on first responders and the Orlando airport coming up next.
Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, the race to the White House inches in. How both parties are preparing ahead of Election Day.
Then, how weather is affecting people's plans to get to the polls.
And the school board is meeting to discuss a new superintendent. We'll bring you more on their future plans. First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
It's election eve and all eyes are on the 2024 presidential race. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Natasha Holt.
And I'm Alex Land. The record-breaking numbers of early voting is evidence of just how important this election is and who's best to lead it. Let's take a look at both candidates' final push ahead of Election Day. Classes on the campus of Howard University have shifted to remote class this week as Vice President Harris is set to spend election night with her supporters. She's a graduate of the historically black university. The Vice President is spending these last hours campaigning in battleground Pennsylvania.
It's about just strengthening our country and reminding each other we are all in this together.
Crews are working on last-minute touches here on campus, and security is as tight as can be as thousands of supporters are expected to be here to watch election results.
Former President Donald Trump is expected to address supporters tomorrow night after election results start coming in from the Palm Beach Convention Center. The former president will close out nearly 9 years of running for or occupying the White House. Supporters say they're expecting a close race and a Trump victory. He's campaigning today across 3 key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, where Harris is also set to speak tonight. The former president has said he'll accept the results of a fair election.
It's ours to lose. If we get everybody out and vote, there's not a thing they can do.
Former President Trump is expected to vote in person tomorrow before watching returns with family and friends at Mar-a-Lago, then addressing supporters at the convention center.
There's Election Day rain forecast across several states, 2 of those key swing states. This all comes after a weekend of destructive tornadoes in Oklahoma left around a dozen people injured. As Laura Aguirre reports, officials are working to be sure voters can still get to the polls.
I looked outside and within like 5 seconds, all hell broke loose.
It's been pretty dry over north central Florida for the past couple weeks, but today has been more cloudy, and we had a few light showers move through our area earlier this afternoon. WUFT forecaster Matt Clark joins us now. Matt, will we have rain tomorrow that could affect voting?
Nearly 60% of all registered voters in Florida have already cast their ballots ahead of tomorrow's Election Day. As of this morning, almost 8.2 million Floridians had cast ballots by mail or at early voting sites. Registered Republicans had outvoted registered Democrats by almost 850,000 people. There are roughly 14 million registered voters in Florida, but registration is down 0.4 million since 2020. Governor Ron DeSantis spent Monday telling voters to reject Amendments 3 and 4.
This is not something you're going to be able to change if it gets enacted. My view on all these amendments is, unless I'm 100% sure this is going to be a good thing, I'm voting no. That's just the reality.
Meanwhile, Florida Democratic Party Chairwoman Nikki Fried is hoping both amendments pass. She also hopes to pick up seats in Congress and the legislature.
Democrats are out there voting, independents are breaking for us, and Republicans, I wouldn't be so sure that all those ballots that have even been turned in at this point are all for them.
Vote by mail ballots will be accepted until polls close on Tuesday. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Election Day.
As Election Day approaches, voters nationwide are gearing up to make their voices heard, and local officials are working around the clock to ensure a smooth voting process. Early voting has already shown steady participation, with officials closely tracking turnout numbers compared to previous years. At the center of these efforts is the Supervisor of Elections, who manages all the logistics of countywide voting. Wesley Wilcox, Marion County Supervisor of Elections, shares voter turnout has been steady thus far.
But all in all, almost 150,000 people have voted here in Marion County. If you add the 2 methods together, which is over 55% of those eligible.
Marion County anticipates to have around 80% voter participation by the end of Election Day. This would mark a record high percentage for the county, exceeding previous election cycles. As the pivotal day nears, the Supervisor of Elections emphasizes the importance of voter participation and the commitment to a smooth electoral process.
When you see a huge chunk of text on your ballot, it can be easy to get confused. Here's a guide to Florida's 6 amendments. Amendment 1 would make district school board elections partisan, meaning those running for office would have to identify with a political party. Amendment 2 ensures the right to hunt and fish. This right is already guaranteed in the state constitution. However, supporters think the amendment is necessary to avoid the right being taken away in the future. Amendment 3 legalizes the use of marijuana. Adults over 21 could recreationally use marijuana without a medical certificate.
Amendment 4 would limit government interference with abortion. If approved, the amendment would expand abortion beyond the first 6 weeks of pregnancy. Amendment 5 would require homestead exemptions to adjust for inflation. This amendment would relieve homeowners of property taxes but reduce revenue for local governments. Amendment 6 would repeal public campaign financing. Candidates would not be allowed to use public funds for their campaigns. Rideshare companies are removing barriers for those who need transportation to the polls tomorrow. Lyft and Uber are providing discounts on November 5th for voters heading to the polling locations. For Lyft rides, use the code VOTE24 to get 50% off your ride. This code is valid from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. local time. Uber also is offering a 50% discount available all day when users select the Go Vote tile in the Uber app. Both discounts cover up to $10 off rides. Lyft cites studies showing that people without cars are far less likely to vote.
WUFT and WRUF have you covered on election night. Tune into Cox Channels 3 and 6 for live team coverage of local city and county races, state amendments, and the race for the White House. Our coverage begins when the polls close on November 5th at 7 p.m. And if you can't get to a TV, you can listen in at FM 89.1 and 90.1, in addition to WUFT.org.
2024 is what some are considering a historic year in election history. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you a special election night edition of WUFT News. I'm Kirsten Maselka.
And I'm Juan Carlos Chowie. Over the next 3 hours, our teams will bring you live updates on key races in our area, across the state and nationally. We've got crews spread out across North Central Florida following the most important races in our area. And we have a team of reporters inside the WUFT studio following the race for control of the House and U.S. Senate. Let's get right over to WUFT's Jessica Nitty live at Heartwood Studios in Gainesville, where local Democrats are holding their watch party.